Philippine Star, Lucy Cruz Valdez, the head of News 5, and down there is Robbie Alampay of One News from the TV5 newsroom in Reliance, Mandaluyong.
Good evening.
Hello.
Good evening and
Good evening.
Happy weekday.
happy weekday. Naunaan ako dun.
Hinihintay pa.
Ami was saying kanina that we expect something tonight. Is that correct?
Nag-alert sa amin ng Malacanang. So, yung mga night owl sa inyo, baka sinisipag kayo. You can wait again for a possible announcement na naman. I think this is the weekly announcement naman from President Duterte sa Malacanang. So, iniintay namin yon. May alert kami ngayon lang eh.
Okay, nothing naman unusual about it because it is a Monday, diba? I mean, there's nothing else we expect aside from the usual Monday report.
Technically, nothing, but I just came from reporting from the big story. We take note, one of the stories that was reported is he just signed a new special law that now allows him to adjust the opening of school days.
Mm-hmm.
The school year in the middle of upon the recommendation of the Department of Education. I don't know, hindi natin pinangungunahan. I'm not saying that's but that was a significant news, I think, because obviously in the past days yan yung tanong ng mga tao, ready na ba talaga tayong magbukas? So I don't know if that adds to the context of what might be discussed, or at the very least what is still an ongoing discussion in government.
Siguro, baka pinag-uusapan nila. Although as of this afternoon, ang sabi ng DepEd, tuloy pa rin daw yung August 24. Pero depende kung anong pag-usapan nila tonight. Diba?
Parang yun ang urgent eh. Kasi nga, tapos na yung enrollment halos, di ba?
Yes, marami na rin eh, marami na.
Yeah. So parang I think DepEd at this point, hindi natin masasabing handang-handa na sila for the August 24. Lalo na yung mga LGU, di ba? So siguro baka nga yun. Kasi,
or it could be a sneak preview of the SONA next week.
SONA, yes.
Yeah.
Sigurado na daw siyang pupunta doon. Sure na pupunta siya sa Batasan.
Kasi sigurado na yung SONA sa Batasan at sigurado may magrally rin sa labas kahit may babala kahit may babala yung gobyerno. So baka i-address niya parehong issue.
Siguro.
Anyway,
baka. I mean, let's be honest. With all our expert analysis, one thing that's predictable with President Duterte's analysis is very unpredictable. I mean, you can throw in anything, any of the big news that happened.
You can also throw in na baka. Robbie, can also throw in na baka bukas pa yan.
Oo nga. Bukas ng umaga. Pero late night naman ang abiso.
Baka kuryente yan, Ami. Baka hindi pa pala.
Hindi, wala ka yung reporter yan.
I mean, you could throw in a lot of serious stuff also. A lot of serious stuff also to report yung mga namatay na high-profile inmates sa Philippines. You wouldn't put it past the president not to say something about something that big and that serious and that has a lot of questions surrounding it.
Lalo si J. Sebastian yun, that involves Senator De Lima, one of his favorites. Diba?
Pero we have a full night tonight, so we might as well start the ball rolling na. Kasi we have at least 3 sets of guests for tonight. Okay, we'll start off with Mr. John Villanueva, the president of the ABS-CBN Rank and File Employees Union, and Mr. Raul De Aces, the president of the ABS-CBN Supervisory Employees Union. Gentlemen, maraming salamat po and thank you for joining us dito sa The CHIEFS.
Good evening.
Magandang gabi po.
Magandang gabi po sa inyo.
Magandang gabi po.
Opo. Kung okay lang po sa inyo, unahin ko na po yung tanong na kamusta ho kayo ngayon kasi in the last few days nababalitaan namin na nagbabawas na talaga ang ABS-CBN. Actually, hindi lang this week pati beginning last month pa ata nagsisimula na sila magbawas. Kamusta na ho po ngayon ang ABS-CBN employees? Ilan na ho ba yung if I may use the word retrench?
Tama po, sir.
Sino gusto mauna? Sir, rank and file muna po, tapos let's go to the supervisors.
Sa amin po, wala pa po kaming eksaktong bilang o porsyento ng mga natatanggal. Pero sa mga nababalita namin na na for example, yung ABS-CBN regional totally dissolved po yung regional. Yung sports, ganun din po. Tapos yung CCM namin
Creatives yun, di ba? Creatives.
less than 10% pa po yung creative management. Less than 10% po yung na natira. So nakikita namin na mabigat po talaga yung epekto nung hindi pagbibigay ng prangkisa. Dahil halos lahat po ng departamento ay nakadepende po dun sa frequency. Ngayon po, sobrang down na down po ang mga manggagawa. Kasi nga po, nangyari ito sa gitna ng pandemya.
Matanong lang kita.
Yun po.
Kasi hindi naman dito biglaan, no? Meron bang punto during the hearing nung medyo umiinit na naisip ninyo, sumagi ba sa isip ninyo na maaari talagang mangyari ito na i-reject yung franchise?
Sa amin po, hindi ko nakikitang i-deny po nila yung franchise dahil makikita nyo naman po sa hearing, inimbitahan naman yung mga ahensyang nakasakop dito, pero lumalabas na wala po talagang violation dun sa mga regulatory agencies. At kagulat-gulat po talaga, hindi namin inaasahan na sa committee level pa lang madidinay na yung prangkisa, kaya sobrang natatakot po kami ngayon sa kahinatnan namin mga manggagawa ngayon.
So wala kayo, Raul, wala ba kayong kahit papano anumang paghahanda, whether psychological, emotional, and of course, financial, no? Hindi nyo ba kinausap yung management, halimbawa, ng anong pwedeng mangyari sa inyo pag hindi nabigyan pang isa? Were there preparations to that effect?
Actually, Ma'am Lucy, within the level ng supervisor pa lang talagang yung umpisa pa lang ng hearing talagang meron na kami, ina-assist namin ng mga officers and the members, through Zoom kami, ina-assist namin yan every hearing. So habang tumatagal yung hearing, parang nag-iiba yung tanungan, yung sagot ng EBS talagang tama naman. Lahat ng mga sangay ng gobyerno na nagpapatupad ng implementation ng batas, tama din naman. Kaya lang, yun nga, medyo masakit kasi parang nagiging personal yung atake sa kumpanya. Parang nakatuon lang sila kay Boss Gabi Lopez. Parang hindi tiningnan yung buong EBS. Ano yung nilalaman ng EBS? Sino yung maapektuhan nitong mga empleyado nito?
Yeah, Mr.
Nakatingin lang
Diaz,
sila.
Yes,
sir.
Mr. Diaz, if you don't mind, no? I mean, over the weekend, kumalat itong video na nag-uusap sila Congressman Defensor, Marcoleta, Remulla, and today I saw House Speaker Alan Cayetano echoing some of the points there, but specifically, yung pino-float ngayon ng ibang congressman na bakit hindi nga lang ABS-CBN employees magpatakbo, and you're hearing these suggestions and this floated idea na baka pa namin niya kung empleyado ang magpapatakbo niyan. How does that suggestion come off to you? How is that being received by the employees of ABS-CBN?
Sa bilang union president, no, ina-assist namin yung kanilang Zoom meeting with the group. Nakakatawa. Kung tawagin parang nakakatawa, parang binobola lang nila yung taong bayan. Pero meron silang personal intention eh. Hindi naman, ginagamit lang nila yung empleyado na bakit hindi na lang sila magpatakbo. Common sense eh. Walang kakayahan ang dalawang union magpatakbo sa isang malaking broadcasting. Hindi siya biro. Pero aywan ko lang, siguro na naginip tong mga congressman, paggising ito'y naisip, akala nila okay, tatanggapin ng tao, which is mali. Ewan ko kung saan nanggagaling yung idea nila.
Well, yung journalist,
Well, in fact,
cameraman, parang ano naman siya, no? In agreement siya, it seems, no? Na sa mga suggestion. Anong reaction niyo doon?
Actually, ma'am, ano siya nagpapagamit siya doon sa mga congressman. Actually, ginagamit lang siyang instrumento. Pero, in reality, hindi naman talaga yan yung purpose eh. Wala, ano lang siya, puppet lang siya dyan. Akala niya, okay siya dyan. Naku po, wala siyang paglalagyan.
Pero ito nga po, Mr.
Sabi nga nung ibang congressman, nagbabalak sila na baka raw pag-aralan kung meron pang madadagdag na sanctions sa network ninyo. Anong implications nun ngayon sa mga empleyado? They are going to look for other violations daw. At baka
Yes, ma'am.
madadagdag na sanction. Anong implication nun ngayon sa future ng mga empleyado ng ABS-CBN?
Kung totoo man yan, sobrang bigat kasi parang iba na yung laban nito eh. Masyadong personal yung atake. Actually, lahat silang itong mga congressman na naka-Zoom, may mga kanya-kanya silang assignment kung ano yung trabaho nitong isa. Ito yung specialty niya, mag-focus siya lang dito, ito naman isa. Talagang plinano nila kung paano nila atakihin ng Lopezes. Pero nakahanda naman ng kumpanya para sagutin lahat ng mga paratang nila.
Pero Raul, Jonathan, sa panig naman ng mga congressmen, sinasabi nila na ginagamit, itong sinasabi nila na ginagamit ng kumpanya yung mga empleyado na panangga para ma-approve daw yung franchise. Ito yung paulit-ulit na sinasabi ng mga congressman na yung 11,000 workers daw, dapat ang kanilang sisihin daw kung sakali should be the network itself and not the congressman.
Actually, Sir Ed, sobrang napaka ng kumpanya, kahit nga lang ito may mga sinasuggest kami mga rally ganito, movement, as much as possible sabi nila wag na nyo nang itutuloy yan kasi maapektuhan yung kumpanya. Ganon sila katakot sa batas, kaingat. Kahit nga itong Sabado, meron kaming ginawa ni Press John ng tarpaulin lang na laban kapamilya, tapos 4 na heart lang na parang RGB lang siya. Pinatanggal ng management yon para sabihin, baka mamaya sabihin nila management initiative yung mga tarpaulin na yan. Ganun sila kaingat. Sobra sila nag-iingat ang kumpanya.
Mr. De Asis, you're both heading unions, you're both officers of a union. Tanong ko lang po, balikan ko lang yung suggestion ng mga congressman. Is there any concern that this might weaken the unity of the union and your members, or are you confident na solid kung ano man ang pananaw nyo sa anong mga gagawin ng mga empleyado moving forward?
Ako po.
Ayan, go ahead.
Ayun,
Go ahead. Sige, President.
Sa akin, maganda yung pinopropose nila in the long run. Pero para sa akin, sa ngayon, nahirap yun. In terms of unity, sa tingin ko, nagkakaisa yung mga empleyado ng ABS-CBN na hindi kami naniniwala doon sa pinopropose nila. Una, kung talaga pong concern sila sa manggagawa, sana po nung hearing lumabas na po yung proposal na yan. Katunayan nga po, nung hearing na yon, nilapitan pa namin si Congressman Mike Defensor na meron kaming sinusulong na provision na pro-workers franchise na pwedeng idagdag sana sa provision kung mabibigyan ng prangkisa. Kaso, ang ginawa nila, kinitil na po nila yung pag-asa namin na magpagtrabaho o maproteksyonan yung mga trabaho namin.
Sir, linawin ko lang po. I mean, what exactly was your proposal? Sinabi niyo po, linapitan niyo si Congressman Defensor. I mean, if you give, ano po exactly yung pinopropose niyo nun?
Yun po, yung pro-workers franchise na magbibigay protection sa mga manggagawa, karapatang makapag-union, Karapatang magkaroon ng CBA, karapatang magkaroon ng seats sa board. Yun po yung pro-workers franchise na sinusulong namin kasama yung Centro Labor Center.
Raul, Jonathan,
Yes, ma'am.
ano naman ang masasabi nyo dun sa suggestion ni Congressman Villafuerte na magpalit na lang kasi ng owner? Okay ba kayo ron? I mean, kasi yun naman nilalatag nila mga alternatives, no? So, ano reaction nyo doon?
Ako, ang reaction ko dyan, ma'am, parang sa akin, parang nililin lang nila yung tao eh. O yung mga empleyado, o yung mga lahat ng mga nagtatrabaho sa ABS. Kasi alam naman natin na para palitan mo isang may-ari, parang ang hirap naman para sa aming mga empleyado. Wala naman, kahit nga kami sa union, hindi din kami ganun tatayo na ganun na lang magpatakbo na isang malaking kumpanya. Ako, sa akin lang, sana wag personal yung kanilang atake sa Lopezes kasi hindi naman sila hindi naman sila pinapakialaman. Pero yun nga, mali yung mga suggestion, ma'am. Hindi po kami sang-ayon sa ganung suggestion po.
Ako naman po, makasagot lang, Ma'am Lucy, no? Sa amin naman, sa Rank and File Union, kami, hindi na namin siguro gugustuhin na magkaroon ng bagong management. Kasi kontento na o masaya na po kami sa pamamalakad ngayon ng mga Lopezes. Maganda naman po yung benepisyong binibigay sa amin at alam namin inalagaan kami. Ngayon napagtatanto namin yung matagal naming kutob na talagang merong motibo ang gobyerno na di ko alam po kung balak ibigay sa mga kakampi kasi parang ngayon ine-echo na po ni Congressman Villafuerte yung mga pronouncement ng ating Pangulo na katunayan, di ba, sinasabi ng Pangulo na ipagbili na lang daw yung ABS-CBN. So, lumalabas sa sinasabi ni Villafuerte na parang yun yung gusto nilang mangyari.
Okay. Maraming salamat po, Mr. John Villanueva at Mr. Raul De Asis, ang mga pangulo ng mga labor unions sa ABS-CBN. Sir, ingat po kayo. Maraming salamat for joining us tonight.
Maraming salamat po.
Salamat po.
Thank you po.
Okay, stay right there. The Chiefs will be right back.
Ako to. Welcome back. The Chiefs now joining us is Cavite 7th District Representative Jesus Crispin Boying Remulla. Congressman Boying, welcome to the Chiefs.
Good evening, Robbie. Maraming salamat sa inyo.
Tapos kasama po natin si Ami, si Lucy, at saka si Ed Lingao.
Hi, Kong.
Good evening po.
Good evening.
Congressman, I'll start with this and I'll let you give a message. I don't know if you saw the first segment of our show, but we were talking to the leaders of the employees unions of ABS-CBN. Of course, you were there. Everybody saw your stance on the non-renewal of the franchise. To start off, may message po ba kayo sa mga ng ating mga kinatawan ng mga empleyado ng ABS-CBN? May gusto po kayong ipaabot sa kanila?
Well, siguro napakahirap sa lahat, especially sa mga head ng union na maging objective talaga tungkol sa mga naging discussions during the franchise hearing. And many of the things that they were saying was part of the propaganda of ABS-CBN during the franchise hearing. And I can rebut each and every one of them, given a chance. Kasi grabe talaga sila sa mental conditioning, sa mind conditioning ng mga tao. You know, a lie repeated so often seems to be the truth already. But I can rebut each and every one of them, given the chance.
Okay. Well, one of the things that they said is they said they're very skeptical of what was discussed in that video, and this whole floating of let the employees run ABS-CBN. And specifically, they said, kung talagang may pakialam sila sa amin, talagang if they really had sympathy, sinabi nila, we proposed a pro-workers franchise arrangement and they were saying, and now the same ones who voted to close to take back the franchise, saying that they care for the employees. Is this true? Do you know anything about the workers? They said for co-workers.
The idea of workers owning an enterprise is not new to us. It is a worldwide phenomenon that many companies have tended to accept in the past in other countries, and that could still be done for ABS-CBN. Well, that's of course moving forward, given the chance. Ang problema, syempre, we don't know how things will still pan out because things are still unraveling up to now.
Congressman, totoo ba yung mga report that the House is not yet done with ABS-CBN and meron pang mga hanapin that could merit sanctions from...
Well, we have to let the law pan out, sinasabi ko nga kanina. Like let's say the dummy relationship with Ankara was something that is something that is completely unacceptable to somebody like me. Kasi it was a very simple thing for ABS-CBN to go to Congress and say we are adjusting our way of doing business because we need another frequency, another channel. That's why we are in the process of purchasing a subsidiary, so that we're asking for the permission of Congress, but they never did that for 25 years.
Yes.
They controlled Ankara, they blocked time for 21 hours a day for 25 years. You call that block time? Come on. Sino ba niloloko natin lahat dito?
So, magkakaroon pa rin ng investigation, Congressman? Magkakaroon pa rin ng investigation? Is that what you're
Yes,
saying?
I think that we owe it to the people to have a conclusion to
Yes.
this episode. Huwag naman na mabibitin lang dito na sasabihin, nakuha na yung gusto, tapos na. Hindi, we have to let everything conclude properly. Kaya yan na lang pinag-uusapan namin ng isang araw. Kagaya niyan, yung tax payments ng ABS-CBN, hindi pa naman kompleto yung investigasyon dyan because they even owe Quezon City taxes. They've never allowed anybody to look at the equipment of ABS-CBN. And they have not paid taxes on this equipment as real property taxes. Isa lang yan sa maraming issues against ABS-CBN.
But sir, are you going further? Are you going after the Lopezes themselves? Because I think that was part of the discussion just before the vote came to pass, that there are other assets of the Lopezes that also may be investigated.
That is not the aim of our discussion. It's really piercing the veil of corporate fiction in this case, because it's a very, very intricate web of legal layering that they did to be able to hide so many things. And we just had to pierce through them to be able to see what they did, how they did. For example, Big Dipper as a subsidiary being put into PESA with 164 workers being paid 2.6 billion a year. I think that obviously, if Channel 5 was the one with the intellectual property to digitize it, you will just need a hard drive, a program, an operating system, and another hard drive to be able to digitize what is an analog copy. Hindi naman ganun komplikado, but to go to PESA to do that. It's ridiculous. Ano na eh? Parang sobrang na yung panloloko sa taong bayan. Ano ba to? Ganito ba? You'd rather pay your lawyers than pay the Filipino people? Wala na ba tayong pagmamahal sa bayan? Ganito na lang ba tayo?
Congressman, ang mayak-mayang inaakusa sa inyo ay ang motibo ninyo, no? Andiyan na yung sinasabi na, ay, ano na yan, done deal na yan, eh, nung sinabi ni President Duterte na sara na kayo. Andiyan yung, of course, yung interest ninyo na gamitin ang frequency for your own interests. At ngayon, because of your Facebook live stream, meron pang sinabi na magte-take over sa 44,000 square meter lot nila. How do you answer these suspicions?
Well, alam mo, Lucy, I listened to that part of the discussion. Eh. I wasn't saying anything when that was discussed, and I just trust that Dante Marcoleta knows what he's saying. Kasi siya yung nag-aral ng issue na yan eh. I was never in on that issue, but just the same. Pag walang titulo na malinaw, pag meron Diyos mag-title na hawak ang ABS-CBN, na sila nag-occupy, kung meron mga question tungkol dito, it has to be answered somehow. And in the end, kung walang lumalabas na talagang rightful owner, it becomes the government's property, plain and simple. It's by operation of law. Nothing more, nothing less. I never advocated a takeover, because why do you need to take over that something that really belongs to the state, if ever?
Yes, sir. Sir, we understand your point. We understand your point. It was not you who was doing the talking. However, the suspicion among some people online is that bakit yung mga legislators na bumoto against the franchise are now talking about what to do with the network after they voted down the franchise. It raises some suspicions na baka plinano yun o baka that was what the intention all along.
Ed, let's not be naive here, no? If ever you want to do something with private property, you will have to go through a legal process. Nobody takes over anything just like that. Hindi ganun yun, Ed. It doesn't work that way.
But how do you question the suspicions, Congressman, that this was a done deal, that you targeted them because President Duterte is very angry toward them and was intent on closing them down? How do you squash those suspicions?
Well, you don't squash those suspicions, Lucy, because suspicions will always be suspicions in jaundiced eyes. People who already made up their minds will always say what they want to say. Let's put it this way. It's the biggest network in this country's franchise expired. And they were up for a renewal, and they were seeking a renewal of the franchise. A franchise is a privilege. Hindi naman to right eh. It's a privilege. You have to prove your worth to be granted the privilege. If they fail the test, they failed the test. And throughout the hearings, we have seen so many questionable things happening. Napalabas naman lahat ng questionable things na yan. Siyempre, they squelch it by portraying one side of the story only. I'll give an example. Sabi nila, citizenship was never an issue. DOJ said, clear daw ang citizenship issue. But I asked the Undersecretary of Justice. Hindi naman Secretary of Justice, the Undersecretary was the one who appeared there. Was there ever a case involving mass media and the provision of the Constitution stating 100% Filipino ownership and control and management? He said none. So what are you driving at? Walang basis talaga yung pinag-uusapan na clear na kasi wala pang kasong fina-file tungkol dito. So,
yes, sir, but doesn't that yes, Congressman, but doesn't that precisely bring back the same questions that was raised also about you have regulatory agencies, you called all of them one by
give me one agency.
You're raising a constitutional question, opinion, and as far as the technical working group itself said, yes, as far as foreign ownership, dual citizenship, ownership of a media company, that is an unresolved question even with the Supreme Court. And
Exactly.
the Congress said, but isn't therefore Congress overstepping and going beyond the bounds with when you precisely recognize this is actually a matter for the Supreme Court to settle. And when it comes to all other things, these
Robbie, you expect us to
regulatory agencies are there precisely to regulate.
for the Supreme Court? No, Robbie, we won't do that. We will look at the franchise issue of citizenship as an issue of citizenship. It is up to us to decide that until the Supreme Court says otherwise. Otherwise, it's the finding of Congress that matters. And we have seen that the PDRs give a modicum of control to the PDR holders. The owners of the stocks cannot even sell their shares of stock because they're already controlled by the PDR holders.
Okay.
The PDR holders get dividends, which they call cash settlement. No, it's dividends. It's part of ownership. Ano ba, naglolokohan ba tayo? It's an attribute of ownership. You can say that because there's no Supreme Court case yet, but while there's no Supreme Court case, it's Congress that says what the law, how the law works. Kami nagsasabi yan. Habang walang
Okay,
Supreme
well,
Are
yes,
you,
sir.
are you planning to introduce changes in the law after the denial of the franchise? And you're saying you're going to pursue more investigations. Is this headed toward any piece of legislation, or is this completely investigation?
we will have to legislate also a matter about mass media ownership in this country.
Yes.
Let's face it, no, these PDRs as a device is very, very controversial because it gives foreigners a modicum of control over mass media. Yan ang kailangan namin i-legislate yan, sigurado ako.
Okay, Kong, pag-usapan na rin natin yung freedom of the press.
Oh, sure.
Was one of the issues or charges actually that you heard during the hearing, no? And this is an issue that is now being raised as against Congress, that this was actually a move to muzzle freedom of the press, knowing that ABS-CBN had been critical in some of the reports. The reaction, please.
It's not a press freedom issue. And press freedom is very important when there is no business interest being protected by that media organization. That's one thing I can say. But when a major organization is protecting big business behind it, no such thing as press freedom issue.
But when you close them down, you're in effect closing a major...
We didn't close them down, Lucy. Their franchise expired. Their franchise expired.
I mean, Congressman, Congressman, I'll use this to segue back to yung video po na lumabas sa inyo ni Congressman Defensor, Congressman Marcoleta. I agree. We all agree. The franchise, the spectrum, the frequency, that's state matters, and that's a congressional matter to decide on. But when people start seeing you talking about the business of the law offices and the business of ABS-CBN, and but hindi na lang ganito yung scheme, why don't they just sell another, how is that still part of the task of congressmen? When you start talking about, how do we get back, kasi wala yung assets. If we give it to the employees, kulang pa rin sila ng gamit. Kailangan ma-figure out natin yung lupa para ma-operate. I mean, I won't even get into how sound that plan is. But just the question of why are congressmen talking about and raising these questions and discussing it amongst themselves?
Robbie, we did a public Zoom. And in the public Zoom, you can speculate all you want. When you discuss with your friends, you speculate all you want. Because you look at the possibilities that are there. One of the things that is always in consideration is the jobs that are being lost. And probably that's one thing that works for us and against us. That we still care about the jobs being lost.
Okay,
So
and just, sir, just...
we explore.
Okay,
So do you,
sir, and just...
you want us not to even think about ways to resolve this job problem?
Well, you will agree.
Shut up and not even think about them and just play numb to everything. We're not numb people. Hindi kami manhid eh. Alam namin, meron talagang kahirapan na mangyayari dahil hindi na nabigyan ng prangkisa ang ABS-CBN. Pero kung yan ay magiging blackmail lang sa taong bayan, blackmail sa sistema ng gobyerno, hindi pwede yan, Robbie. It cannot work that way.
Okay. So, sir, just to clarify the context of that discussion, because that discussion did not take part in the context of you believing that you can compel the Lopezes to do something with their business that they don't want to do.
No, we cannot do that. We cannot compel them. It's you have to follow a legal process if you want something done forcefully, and definitely there's no compulsion for them to follow us when we are suggesting something. But for us to take the law and file a case and try to expropriate, that's far from my mind. The farthest from my mind. It's not worth it.
Did you actually find that suggestion feasible for the workers to take over? And you were talking to
Yeah.
a cameraman, no? I mean,
Yes.
to a cameraman who had been let go.
Which
And-
you know what I'd call it? I'd call it wishful
Right.
thinking.
Yeah.
I'd call it wishful thinking. Because there are countries in the world, especially in Europe, where the workers are given the chance to run the companies themselves. Probably not in a country where oligarchs still run the show. Hindi mangyayari yan.
Okay.
Sir, you in the last, I think it was in the last day of the hearings, there was a lot of discussion of the oligarchy. No,
Yes.
not the last day of the hearing. I think it was the voting day itself. There was a long discussion oligarchy both by Mike Defensor and Speaker Cayetano. When they were speaking about the oligarchy, I think they were referring to, of course, the Lopezes. Do you see a connection between that set of oligarchs, according to those congressmen, and the oligarchs that the president was referring to when he spoke in Holo?
Probably there is a relationship. Mabibilang mo naman ang oligarchs sa atin eh. The rent-seeking behavior in our country is limited to very few families. It's about mass media, water, electricity, internet, telco. That's where the oligarchs are. Real estate.
Yeah, but, sir, what do you say to people who say that it's hard to, and it's ironic and difficult to hear congressmen talking about the country being in the hold of a few families when Congress is a Congress of a lot of political dynasties? And people are saying this is very ironic and even very hypocritical to hear congressmen talking about breaking apart the power of a few families when congressmen control, not just in terms of dynasties, but you could argue oligarchies within their own regions, within their
Bobby,
own.
dynasties are voted out of office. People still choose who they want to lead them. But dynasties can always be voted out of office. But oligarchies, you have to legislate. You have to do something about the way they do business. That's one thing.
Yes, but also that's true, and it's something that we do acknowledge is a key difference. You're right, sir. But the Constitution also says that we will pass that legislation for anti-dynasty laws and so on. And we all know that an anti-dynasty law still has not, any meaningful anti-dynasty law has not. It is true that you are voted, but in the interest of breaking up power that is held by a few families, the reality is congressmen and congresswomen have not voted against their self-interest.
So what's the point?
No, I'm just saying. The only point is just you're hoping to get your response because this is, I think, you will acknowledge one of the responses of the public, the reactions of the public. It's ironic for them to hear people talking about oligarchies and a few families controlling them. When the reality is a few families. Congress is party to that. You have oligarchs within their provinces and their regions that are also part of the same political family.
Robbie, ibang-iba ang oligarchy sa political dynasties. Ibang-iba yan. Oligarchies have rent-seeking behavior. Iba sila. Ang tubig, kaya nilang presyohan na mataas. Ang kuryente, pwede nilang pataasin ang presyo. Ang internet, pwede nilang pabagalin. That's how the country works. But when the oligarchies hold this, because they have no incentive to improve things, talagang hindi uulad ang Pilipinas.
Well, sir, I think the
biggest problem in the country because the oligarchical system, the duopoly, has really defeated. There's no more competition in telecoms. That's why our internet is one of the slowest in the world. And now we cannot even do distance education to our people because there's no inclusive growth because the poor people have no access to the internet. It's oligarchical. Is that dynastic? No, it's oligarchy.
Yes, sir. But I think to Robbie's point, there is a connection because if oligarchs are rent seekers or rent seeking, well, politicians in many cases are the rent givers. They're the ones who grant these special privileges to those who seek them.
And we can always be voted out. Politicians can always be voted out. But oligarchies, they stay forever. That's
Yes,
why
sir.
we
I agree, sir. I agree, sir. But that's in a ideal world. In the Philippine context,
It can be done.
it's not that easy to vote out a
It's not
dynasty.
impossible, Luchi. It's not impossible to improve the system because moment that Congress just kowtows to the views of the oligarchs and just agrees that the oligarch is right all the time, then you have a problem in the country. It is the healthiest when lawmakers are saying the oligarchs are too much and they have to reform, they have to change. There are things that can be changed, and this is the things that we have to change. Like, let's say, we're looking at Meralco now. Tinitingnan namin ang mga kontrata ng Meralco. We're unbundling everything. We're looking at each expense matter. And we think that we can bring down the cost of electricity. We have the most expensive electricity
Yeah.
in Asia, probably the world. Come on. We have to do our jobs. Sino pa gagawa ng hindi kami?
Yeah, but I think I agree, sir. But I agree. You are the legislators, and precisely that was one of the things that people were trying to get a grasp. You have regulators as part of the executive to implement the laws and the better laws that you can make.
I agree.
When people are complying with regulators, they expect that this is everything is above ground and transparent. In the meantime, there are loopholes and if there are gaps. You're correct, sir. That is precisely your job to improve the laws and so on. And you're precisely making the same point. Kung may
Kaya nga.
makasip man, okay
Robbie,
naman because we can improve the law. But this is
no?
not what happened with ABS-CBN.
Yeah, but when you talk about
You
regulators,
called all the regulators.
about regulatory capture, the NTC, the commissioner has been there for the past 12 years. He has slept with everybody already. Lahat naging kaibigan niya na. SEC, it's not a very well-funded agency, and they put blinders on themselves. Like, example sa inyo yung PDR. Did they even bother to check if foreigners were buying the
Yes, but
PDRs?
sir, but they explained the PDRs. They explained the PDRs. They said that it is the SEC that monitors the rules for the issues of PDRs. But it was asked, can you monitor? No, that's up to the self-regulating bodies like the PSE. I mean, they explained that the limits of what they could do with regards to. In the meantime, as far as they were concerned, it just keeps going back to the bottom line that
Yeah,
we
that's
are the
why.
industry and we can certify that they are in compliance.
That's why there is such a thing as congressional oversight. Pag sumobra na talaga, nagtuturoan na yung regulators. We have to step in. Who else will step in? Executive na nga yan eh. The judiciary will not step in unless there's a justiciable controversy. That's why we have to step in. That's congressional oversight.
And you will pass remedial legislation. That's what you're saying.
Yes, we will pass the media legislation. That's why we have to continue talking. And we're even making our Zoom public because we have nothing to hide.
Okay.
Okay?
Okay?
Maraming
Okay.
salamat po sa inyo.
Congressman Remulla, unfortunately, we've run out of time. We
Yes.
really enjoyed and we appreciated your time, sir. Thank you for
Maraming
joining
salamat.
us.
Maraming salamat.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Okay. Please stay right there. The chiefs will be right
Welcome back to the Chiefs. We are now in the final stage of our conversation. And now we'd like to welcome our next guest, Father Jerome Siciliano of the Catholic Bishops' Conference of the Philippines. Good evening po, Father. Welcome again to the Chiefs.
Good evening, Ami. Good evening, Roby. Good
Good
evening,
evening,
Ed.
Father.
Good evening, Lucy.
Good
Yes.
evening, Father.
Okay, we have been discussing the ABS-CBN issue and we know the CBCP issued a statement supporting the network. Pero hindi po yata yun na naka-attract ng atensyon ng government. Your statement on the Anti-Terrorism Act elicited a response from the Chief Presidential Legal Counsel. And he was mentioning the separation of church and state. Ano po yung it's not the first time that this issue has been brought against the CBCP, of course, even through previous presidents. Nabanggit na rin yan. Ano po yung sagot ninyo kay Mr. Panelo?
Well, any law freshman, including all those who study, all the in the media, those educated enough, know very well that that separation of church and state doesn't mean that the church cannot anymore say things regarding what's happening in our society. Well, I am not a lawyer, but I think Attorney Panelo also knows this, that in the Constitution, when it speaks of the separation of church and state, it only means that the state cannot actually found a state religion, and then government funds or public funds cannot be used to fund or to support the religion of the state. So that is very clear in the Constitution. So I just don't know why they keep on harping about this, trying to discredit the Catholic Church when it speaks on socio-political issues or when it speaks on issues that actually affect the people. Well, I think masyado ng gasgas yung ganong issue, ano? So, hindi ko alam kung bakit ganon ang sinasabi ni Attorney Panelo na napaka-elementary naman ng ibig sabihin ng separation of church and state.
Kumusta po yung ministry ninyo ngayon? I mean, has it improved during the pandemic na ganyan nga, nahihirapan na nga magmisa, nagkakaroon pa ng conflict with the government, and we have all these social problems coming up, and I'm sure people want to reach out more to the Catholic Church. Ano po
Well,
yung nagagawa natin ngayon?
Well, the only difference now and before, we continue to celebrate the Mass, but then people were not actually present in the church. Now that the IATF decided that 10% of the church's capacity may attend, so at least there were a few people attending our Masses now. But during the height of the COVID-19 onslaught, and we experienced that many people are actually attending our Masses through Facebook Live and in the television. Also, we have it on the radio. So I think when we had it in the digital platform, we get so many people attending our celebrations. So compared to the physical presence of the people, it's quite limited. Now, even those from other countries, they can actually attend to our masses. So I think when it comes to awareness of what the church is doing, well, the people are very much aware that we continue with our liturgical celebration. And at the same time, at the height of this COVID-19 pandemic, the church is also very much involved in charitable works.
Have you received more calls for help from the people related to, let's say, human rights concerns in the implementation of quarantine, and now with the Anti-Terrorism Act? Are more people going to you about their concerns?
Well, number one, when it comes to the quarantine protocols, of course, we understand that our movements are actually limited. But when it comes to legislation, for example, this Anti-Terror Act of 2020, we have concerns, and according to the exhortation of the Catholic Bishops' Conference of the Philippines, the bishops are alarmed about what's happening. And if you will notice in that pastoral exhortation, the bishops mentioned so many issues. So these are intervening issues. These are events that happened one after the other. It dates back, or dated back to the time of the ascension of President Duterte to the presidency. So I think the bishops right now who were silent in a while, for quite a while, now notice that somehow there are events that are happening that may actually affect that so-called fundamental rights of the people. And so, sensing all this, the bishops decided to say something and be a father or a mother to her faithful, so that the faithful may also be informed about what's happening, and at the same time call on the faithful to pray for our political leaders, government leaders, as well as the leaders of the church, that according to the exhortation, we may be guided by the Holy Spirit so that we may always do what is for the common good.
Pero Father,
Father, tell me if I'm
yung quotation ninyo, no, na yung sinabi ninyo na if the church does not anymore speak about these matters and there are wrongs being committed left and right, then we cease to exist as a church. It's not just a call for prayer, no, it's a call for actually speaking out, it seems, against the government. Is this something that you are now encouraging the faithful to do?
No, number one, we are not encouraging faithful to go to the streets. We are merely encouraging the faithful to be knowledgeable about what's happening. And also, implied into that particular exhortation, that we continue our process of discernment. So we need to be together in order to reflect, in order to study. And then what can we do as a church? What can we do as believers? What can we do to help our brothers and sisters, especially those who may have less in life? So it's informing the people about what's happening, and at the same time, it's a call for prayer. But then there are no specifics. Meaning to say specifics that we are not calling them to go to the streets. We're not calling them to go against the government. In fact, when we actually expressed all those issues, informing the people about them, these are just to inform. This is just rather to inform the public about it, but never to go against the government. But also asking the government to listen to us, because not all of us have the monopoly of ideas. Not all of us have the monopoly of good intentions. But I think the government should actually listen to some other sectors, because perhaps other sectors can also contribute. So that's
Yeah,
the intention of the apostolic, the exhortation.
Father, yung concerns over the anti-terror bill, is it just a matter of seeing what might be misconstrued or misapplied or abused for other sectors, or does it also come from a sense of history of how even the church, even religious people, can be tagged as enemies of the state, can be tagged as terrorists?
Number one, we have to admit that the formulation itself of the law is quite flawed, and it's vague in a sense. So many other experts have already said that. And so, saying all this, uh, looking also at the history of our country, and even if we don't look now on the distant past, but the recent events. So we have bishops who were hailed to court because of these allegations of inciting to sedition. And then we also have this network whose, what do you call this one? It expired. It expired already. The franchise expired. And then we also have another personality connected with Rappler, who was also hailed to court, was convicted. And then in 2018, I think, if I am not mistaken, or 2017, with Senator Laila de Lima. So these are events that we are looking at. Are they actually just coincidental, or is there actually a plan, a conscious plan to do all these things? And what is really the plan? So that was, I think, in the mind of the bishops. And so therefore, the word that they used in the exhortation is, we are alarmed at what's happening. So it's a combination of both. The formulation itself is quite flawed, it's vague, and at the same time, the history itself would tell us that we have to be vigilant. We don't want to keep our guards down, because we never know what's going to happen next.
Father, please tell me if my memory is faithful. But parang this is one of the stronger statements, or stronger pastoral letters to be issued by the CBCP in recent months or years, if I recall correctly. Tama ho ba? It is a strong pastoral statement coming from the bishops.
well, actually coming from me, it's not that strong. It's actually enumerating all these events that are happening, and then, of course, calling on our national government leaders to listen to us, to consider our suggestions, and then also calling on our faithful to pray. I think the most controversial o medyo strong statement or pastoral exhortation that the bishop did was maybe 2 years ago when it said that there is a reign of terror in the time of the presidency of President Duterte. So I think mas
Mhm.
matindi yun, ano? Kasi yun ang description, reign of terror. At talagang pinag-usapan naman talaga ng publiko yun.
Mhm. But how difficult was it for the bishops to come to a consensus with this pastoral letter? Kasi it is a conference nga po, di ba? I mean, a lot of people seem to forget that you don't really have one leader in the Philippine church. You have several leaders.
So you're correct on that. It's a collegial body, and then they had all this, of course, a consensus that happened, consultations that they did, and I don't think it's going to be difficult for them, ano, to write all these things because they actually happened. The imprisonment of Laila de Lima, the cases filed against some of the bishops, and then of course the closure of ABS-CBN, and then Maria Resa's conviction, and then this thing about Anti-Terror Act of 2020. So I don't think it's going to be difficult for them. It's just narrating all these events that transpired and then calling on the people to be together, let us be united. Actually, if we're going to be positive about the pastoral exhortation, it's kind of very fatherly or motherly in a sense that we have a church trying to call on her faithful to discern, to pray, to be together. Let us not be divided. So let us continue to support whatever good that's happening, but also let's try to be vigilant and do something if there are evils already that are happening.
Okay. Father Jerome Ceciliano, the Catholic Bishops Conference of the Philippines. Maraming salamat po, Father, for joining us tonight.
Thank you,
Salamat
Father.
po.
Okay po.
And that will be all for this special edition of the Chiefs. We hope what was discussed here will keep the conversation going. I'm Edwin Galpa News.
I'm Mami Pamintuan of the Philippine Star.
I'm Lucy Cruz Valdez of News 5.
I'm Robbie Alampay, and we are One News.